You get 2 months free of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That is a $180 value, completely free, just by depositing $10. I'm telling you, you will not find a deal better than that in our company's history. It is an incredible thing that you need to be taking advantage of now. But of course, you're here for some season-long stuff, so let's jump on into that. These are my top 5 waiver wire pickups, as well as my top 3 streaming options, more specifically just for the week 3 options. If you're really in a tight bind and need to find a start, I've got 3 guys for you. And then also, as a little bonus, my top number 1 avoid of the entire week, somebody that I think might be getting rostered coming up here soon and really shouldn't be, like Juwan Johnson, who's somehow owned in 37% of leagues. That's a story that we'll get to here. But of course, top 5 picks, let's go. At number 5, basically the entire story of week 2 was a bunch of injuries. We don't really know how it's going to work out here in the next couple weeks. We know coaches lie, so that's going to be exciting to figure out exactly what is true and what is fiction. But what I do know for a fact is the 49ers running game is in shambles. Elijah Mitchell, the number 1 stash, ended up going down. JaMycal Hasty ended up going down. You had Trey Sermon, who got concussed. A number of injuries that exist here. I know Elijah Mitchell got reinserted into the game, but my number 5 pick, Trent Cannon, who is owned currently in 0% of Yahoo leagues. So Trent Cannon ended up being an acquisition from the Baltimore Ravens. He got released after week 1. He ended up being plugged right into the 49ers system, and I doubt that they were trying to use him as a runner at any point in this game. Sure enough, he ended up getting 1 carry for -1 yards, but basically, this is just a prospective ad because in the event that Elijah Mitchell is actually banged up or Hasty and Sermon can't give it a go, there's nobody else in that 49ers running game to pick up any of the work whatsoever. And Trent Cannon is at least a somewhat serviceable running back, I think, ? But number 5 here, it's really not going to cost you anything to be able to go pick him up on the wire. Definitely do not be using a number 1 or number 2 priority to go get him or, anything substantial whatsoever in your fab budget. But Trent Cannon, he's somebody to at least have on your radar in the event that this 49ers run situation is just completely broken like it looks like. At number 4, this is another perspective ad here because the running game for the Minnesota Vikings is very clear-cut. It's Dalvin Cook. But Dalvin Cook left the game twice against Arizona with an ankle injury. I'm not sure how severe it is, but you got to be looking at Alexander Mattison, currently only rostered in 32% of Yahoo leagues. So I'm thinking that that could be a pretty good ad here, depending on how everything ends up shaking out here for the Vikings. I don't really know what this looks like. This is coming at you Sunday night. If anything changes between now and a couple days from now, I'm thinking Alexander Mattison could jump as far as up to number 1 here in the event that Dalvin Cook is actually going to sit. He's a tough dude, but 22 of the carries here. Alexander Mattison, only 3 carries in this loss to Arizona. I'm just thinking, in the event that Dalvin Cook sits whatsoever, you need Mattison, and this makes it a pretty easy ad just in case anything pops up on the injury report. At number 3, and I debated over and over on whether or not I wanted to add this guy into the pool because in years past, this is not a player that I believe in, but Cordarrelle Patterson is number 3. And I hate to say it, but this is just basically the way that the Atlanta Falcons are utilizing this dude. He also has wide receiver and running back eligibility on Yahoo. Makes him a little bit easier to plug and play into lineups if you were in a tight bind. But I don't understand why Mike Davis is not getting clear-cut work here. He got only 9 carries for 38 yards against the Bucs, and I understand the Bucs are a pass funnel. They are so good at stopping the run, routinely going back to last year, early parts of this year, but that's still just not a lot of workload. And Cordarrelle Patterson ended up getting 7 carries for 11 yards and was kind of the more dynamic playmaker. 5 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Ended up kind of getting to value that way. I'm not saying that this is going to be a long-term solution for your fantasy football teams, but because of the multi-positional eligibility, you at least need to have Patterson on your radar.
The mics is hot. The mics is hot. Hey. And we are live. Welcome to the NFL Strategy Show Lineup Building Edition. I am Josh Engelman, normally joined by the boss man himself, Alex Baker. Not so fast for this week. Joining me on this one, it would be the Colts. That would be Steve Buzzard. It's nice to have Steve here. But before we talk to Steve, you guys got to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. We're going to build a DK Cash lineup today. We're going to build a FanDuel GPP lineup, and then we are going to get out of here. But now we can start it off. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing really good. I think this is the first time we've done a show together, so super excited for that. Trying to make the rounds a little bit, mixing things up. Glad to fill in on this show. I've done a lot of cash builds historically, but I'm starting to get away from them a little bit. So it's good to get back to those talking points. And yeah, let's get after it.
Well, let's talk about some of those cash builds to start. I wanted to just get your thoughts in general on any particular cash game strategy that you have. Are you digging into it a lot? Are you just going to go straight optimal, generally speaking? What is your normal approach to a cash build?
Yeah. So over the years, cash games were what really helped build up a lot of my bankroll. I've gotten away from them a little bit, other than NFL. NFL is the one that I think I've been able to do a little bit more. So some of the other sports, it's just the news is happening later and later, it feels like. And I've been more and more focused on GPP contests. But in NFL, you have a lot of time to be able to build some optimal lineups. What I typically like to do is I do like to build the most optimal lineups. The second thing is I do like to run more than one lineup. So I tend to like to run maybe 3 lineups. I know that's not something that is what most people do. They just like to, this is my manly one lineup and I'm going to beat you with it. But I like to, kind of spread things out a little bit, even in some of the cash games, just because I think there is a lot of variation between a guy that might be, 0.1 points difference between the other. The second thing that I tend to think about a little bit in cash games is occasionally you might have a lineup with a guy that is not going to be very popular, and he's not going to be very popular. You can look at our ownership projections. They're not necessarily for cash games, but they are likely to be very accurate in cash games as well. And if that player, like I'm getting a player that's not very accurate and his projection is very close to someone else in a different secondary or third or fourth lineup, I might flip-flop those lineups. And also the same might be the other way. If a player is very popular and I don't have them, then I might flip the lineup to get that player in. But for the most part, it's going with the most optimal lineup.
Okay. You mentioned building more than one. Are you looking to deploy them differently depending on the contest? Would you have one that would be more specific to head-to-head contests in comparison to one that would be more geared to, say, a double up?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you are playing in head-to-head contests, you do still get rewarded for beating more people, whereas in a double up, you're just want to beat 50% of the people. So there are slightly different strategies there. I don't think it's a huge difference, but it's big enough that you should take it into consideration. So for instance, if you have a outlier score, like in a stacked lineup, you might have a higher capability to get up to like 70 percentile versus 50 percentile. And I think that's worth doing in head-to-head. So if I am building a couple of different lineups and one of them happens to be like a stack, for instance, that one I would lean more towards putting into head-to-head contests.
Okay. Well, I think now that we've had a little bit of a discussion about some cash strategies, first, I just got to tell everybody what our schedule looks like for today, because we have a ton of content. At 1 p.m., the Awesemo Betting Show on the Awesemo Odds channel with Eitan and Ben. At 2 o'clock, Awesemo Fantasy Football, Eitan's back with Laffy and Matt Savoca. We get a 3 p.m. Yahoo NFL show. We get a 4 p.m. Prize Picks College Football show. We get a 5 p.m. MLB Deeper Dive. We get a 6 p.m. MLB Live Before Lock. Hour after hour after hour, we are bringing you guys the content. You do not want to miss any of it. Plus, if you're playing baseball today, MLB ownership is free. If you're looking to play some NFL contests this Sunday and you want to get an early start, since today is Friday, NFL Top Stacks are also free. But now we're going to dive in to our DraftKings cash lineup build. One last reminder again, everybody, hit that like button. I think the easiest place to start for a cash lineup this week is going to be at wide receiver. I think the first guy that we're putting into this lineup would be Cooper Kupp, 6,800 on DraftKings this week, and pulling the most ownership of any player on the slate. Do you have any disagreements with Cooper Kupp as our first guy in from a cash perspective?
No, I think Cooper Kupp is a really good one. I don't see any reason why you don't want to go with him in a cash game. So I think that's a perfectly great guy to start with. They're going to have to score some points to keep up with Tampa Bay. So yeah, let's do that.
Do you have any particular thoughts for a cash build with regards to stacking, or having a running back and a wide receiver from the same team, or a running back going with the same defense? Are you paying attention to any of that in cash?
I tend not to too much. If it works out that I can get a stack, I'm normally fine with that. It's not something I'm going to push towards. Again, if you're in a head-to-head contest, it might be a tiebreaker. Like if the two lineups are close, you might want to lean towards some correlated stacks, but it's not something that I'm going to go too heavily on. If you're thinking about the flex position, that's one that I think a lot of people also ask about. And the flex position, I do tend to lean maybe towards running back, but on DraftKings it's a little bit closer because the PPR. FanDuel lean a little bit more heavily towards the running back, but it's not a lock on DraftKings.
So I guess I'm going to lead you into this next question, because I was talking there about stacking a little bit. I'm running an unencumbered crunch right now, just no randomness, 100% exposure. I want to get an idea of the guys that are showing up most in this crunch. And I am being inundated with Rams, whether that's Stafford, Van Jefferson, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee. How many Rams can we actually play in a cash game situation today?
So it's actually I think it's a pretty safe bet to play more in general. The reason being, if you let's say for whatever reason it's not Cooper Kupp day, and instead, I don't know, maybe it is Higbee day, or I don't know, so, someone like that, you still get those points potentially. So I think that is, certainly a way to go that you can take advantage of it.
Higbee appears to be that guy. In the 50 lineups that I ran, he showed up in all of them. About 10% owned, but we're filling the tight end spot with 4K. Does he seem like a cash option for you? If we have extra money down the line, potentially we could update or upgrade to one of the more volume heavy tight ends. But is Tyler Higbee looking like our cash option?
Yeah, I think Higbee is fine. He's going to be pretty popular, I would say. Obviously you want to get to Kelsey and Waller and those type of guys, but I don't really see the same thing where I build a couple lineups that I can even get to them. Even Higbee is kind of expensive in some of them. I have Higbee coming up a bit, and then it's also some guys like Hunter Henry, potentially TJ Hawkinson, just a lot of guys that you're not going to be necessarily super excited about. Even like Harrison Bryant, if we want to go into the really low guys, might even be kind of an option that isn't going to get necessarily a ton of attention in the GPP contest, but it might be a way to make some of the lineup work. So I think Higbee we can go with.
Okay, perfect. So we've got Kupp and Higbee in now. Is there a third person? Who's next for you? Who stands out as a quality cash game option on DraftKings for this week?
So I think Dalvin Cook is a really nice one. He's always going to be heavily involved in the offense. Minnesota seems like they're putting up an okay amount of points each week, and against Seattle's defense has been pretty weak, and we know that, like I said, that Cook is going to be pretty involved. That's where getting a guy like him or Derrick Henry, both of those guys are at the top, that they might garner some consideration, and that's where I think it's going to be driving that fact that you need a lower cost tight end.
Alrighty, so I just filtered down our big board. Dalvin Cook, second highest ranked guy on the big board on DraftKings for this week, only behind Cooper Kupp. So we've got our number 1 and number 2 for the main slate into the lineup. Higbee coming in, let's see, 6th overall. So we've got that working for us. Second running back option. We did go to Cook. I think that looks good. Obviously, there are other pay up options. The first guy that stands out to me is $6,300 Joe Mixon. He's a guy that's highly ranked on our big board. He is showing up quite a bit in my crunch just to see who is there. Do we slot Joe Mixon in, or do you have any other options at running back that stand out to you? Obviously, we would love to go to like a double pay up option, but I don't know if we're going to have enough salary to do so.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think Mixon makes a lot of sense there. He's going to continue to get a heavy workload. Their team total isn't super high, but I think his workload is safe for a cash lineup. The other one that we could consider if we need to end up flipping him down the road for salary or whatever is, what do you think of Mike Davis this week? He continues to also disappoint because that Atlanta defense has been terrible, but he is getting a heavy workload week after week. So he might be a guy to consider as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't be all that crazy to me. Mike Davis at 5,100, probably the cheapest guy that I think that we could actively go to there. Just other guys in that like sub 6 range. I don't know, DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, or do we go all the way down to $4,800 Clyde Edwards-Helaire, priced now as if he's a very different person? That's and not all that highly ranked in our big board right now. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, somewhere in like the 30s. If we're talking overall of everybody, just adding, additional slates, I mean, he's in the 40s.
Yeah, I think he is a good option as well. So if we need cash savings, we can go to him. That's an offense that's going to score some points. That's one of the games that might shoot out more than any of them. We've seen Kansas City's defense be pretty terrible. We've seen the Chargers be able to put up some points, and we know that Kansas City is going to keep pace with pretty much everyone. So I think that's a fine option also.
So we have Van Jefferson at 3,400, ranked 7th overall for the main slate. KJ Osborne, a guy that's getting a little bit more ownership, is ranked 8th. They're directly next to each other. They're not projected all that differently. Do you like the idea of going to a Jefferson or Osborne in this cash lineup to save a little bit of money at the wide receiver spot?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's okay. I would rather try to get a little bit higher. Those are I guess even Osborne's ownership is quite high, actually.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the 11% range off the top of my head.
Yeah, so maybe those are fine. Yeah, I think Osborne is fine, and Van Jefferson also is fine. I think both of those are fine if we need that savings.
Okay. Do you have a quarterback that stands out? The defense for me is looking like I'm just going off the top of my head of what I remember seeing earlier. Was it the Titans that were pulling the most ownership? Yes, it was. $2,400 Titans D is the most owned defense right now. They get to take on an Indianapolis Colts team. The Colts in particular, they get to take on. We don't know exactly who's going to be under center for Indianapolis. It could be Carson Wentz on 2 sprained ankles, or insert random jobbers behind him here. Are we going to the Titans D? Are you allowed to advocate for the Titans D against the Colts here?
I think so, because I picked them up in our season long league. So
okay.
So yeah, let's go with the Titans. At 2,400, that's what you need. You need a price that's low, especially in this lineup. So the options that I'm mainly thinking about for cash savings in this lineup are that defense, the tight end that we already talked about, and then this wide receiver 3 options. So I think they make a lot of sense for sure.
Okay. Titans D is in. I've left those 2 wide receiver spots open right now, whether we're going to end up getting to the pay down for Jefferson or the pay down for, who am I missing? Who's the other potential pay down?
Osborne.
Yeah, Osborne. We'll leave those free for right now. At quarterback, the projected highest owned guy is Josh Allen. He's $7K. Matt Stafford is also quite popular. Well, relatively so. $6,400 if we're looking for savings. I don't really see a lot at QB that is like pushing me to any particular build. I think Stafford is going to be the guy that's most popular, at least as of right now. Given my crunch, that is certainly how it shook out. Are we going to Matt Stafford as our cash quarterback, or are you trying to be a little bit different here, given we already have Kupp and Higbee?
No, I think Stafford makes a lot of sense with those guys. Let's go ahead and go that way.
Okay.
If those guys are going to bust anyways, then our lineup is in trouble, I would
Yeah,
say.
that's a good
So
point.
so we might as well take the Stafford anyways. Like let's just say we went Brady, who's a fine quarterback at like the same price, or Justin Herbert or somebody like that, and Kupp and Higbee did terrible, then I don't even know that those guys can help enough to help us out. So we'll go for some upside.
Okay, so if we lock Stafford in, I have 3 blanks, 2 wideout spots, and a flex. If we just want to put in, let's just say Osborne for right now as a placeholder, that would give us 6,100 for 2 separate guys. 6,100 at wideout, and then we have 12,200 total to fill out our final 2 spots. That's not the worst amount of salary in the world. Just looking at guys in that range, Chris Godwin is 6,100 exactly, hits that mark if we want to fill him in as our third wideout with Osborne and Kupp. Do you have any thoughts on Godwin there? That would then leave us another 6,100 to play with at flex.
Yeah, Godwin is good. The two guys that I had in mind, depending on where we were at salary wise, were Godwin and Marvin Jones. I think Arizona's defense is pretty weak right now, and Marvin Jones seems to be the big beneficiary of Lawrence taking shots. So I think that looks good. I think either of those two are good. So if we went, so that would leave us with 6,100, would be about 6,100 again on the running back side.
If we went to Godwin at 6,100, we have 6,100 at the flex for obviously whoever we want to go to.
Nice. So it looks like Antonio Gibson is 5,900. We talked about him earlier. I think that's a pretty good spot to be at.
If we slot Antonio Gibson into this lineup, that leaves us $200 left over, projected for 153.42. The value ranking, greater than 90%. The contrarian ranking, less than 10%. This looks like a pretty good cash lineup to me.
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty good for sure.
I love it. I love it. So there it is, everybody. You can see it on the screen. If you're playing DK Cash, you can do a lot worse than using the lineup that we just built together on the screen. Now, there is a poll going. This is going to pick the team stack that we are going to use for our FanDuel GPP. And based on everything I'm seeing, it's looking like we're going to be going to the Rams. 44% of the votes for the Rams, 34% for the Chiefs. The Denver Broncos finished 3rd, and the Buffalo Bills coming in last in the poll. But before we get to that FanDuel GPP build, we got to talk about 2 things. One, promo code NFL Strategy Show. One big word gets you an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. You get access to all of the premium content and tools that we have at Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, premium Slack, lineup builder, and more. If you are a new user of Awesemo, you can take advantage of this promo code. It's pretty great for you. You can see it on the screen right now. 25% off that first week of Awesemo Plus. But I also have to give the shout out to the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Jock Market. They have turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. Whether you're playing NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, you can make real money throughout all of the game. If you, this is my example normally on a baseball slate, you pick up shares of a leadoff hitter. He hits a home run in his first at bat. If you want to lock in your profits and sell those shares at that point in time, you can do so. Or you can hold for the rest of the game and hope that he increases that performance. Either way. Plus, they've added the ability to short players, which is a very interesting mechanism at the site. If you use the promo code Awesemo when signing up at Jock Market, you go to the app store, download the app, use that promo code, get up to $50 on your first deposit. Everybody likes free money. Don't make the mistake of not using the promo code. Sign up using that promo code Awesemo. Get yourself a little bit of extra free cash on the back end. It is time to build a FanDuel GPP lineup, and we need to build it with a Rams stack. So right out of the gate, this bad boy is going to look a little bit like our cash lineup. Right away, we got to put Matt Stafford in. Otherwise, that is not a stack. So Stafford gets slotted in. The question then becomes, do we go to Cooper Kupp, who is expected to be pretty heavily owned this week? A little bit less so on FanDuel. The price is a little bit not less appealing, we'll say. Or are we looking to go to Robert Woods? Are we looking to go to Tyler Higbee? A combination of those guys. When you look at a Rams stack, what direction are you most likely to go to start?
So a couple of things that stand out to me, first of all, is I don't think that the ownership on any of the wide receivers are too prohibitive right now. Even the quarterbacks are pretty spread out. We have to remember this is a full slate. All the teams are playing.
Yeah.
So ownership isn't quite as big of a issue as it is normally. So I think both Kupp and Woods are fine options because of that. If you do see one of them creeping up, which will most likely be Kupp, then it might be more beneficial to split it up a little bit and go the other route. But for now, I would say let's just assume that maybe that's going to happen and go with Woods.
Okay. Do you want to double that stack? Do you want to add a Van Jefferson or a Tyler Higbee?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Let's do that. Try to get leverage against Kupp in case he's the one that doesn't do well, and plus
Okay.
that will also be a hedge slightly against our lineup over on over on DraftKings that we just did.
What's your preference, Van Jefferson or Tyler Higbee? Do we lock down tight end or do we go for a cheaper wideout?
Let's see. I would say let's do Higbee.
Okay.
We'll start keep with him. I think he may come a little bit under in this week. He disappointed last week.
He did.
And I had some nice lineups with him that did not work out, and maybe this is a bounce back spot.
All right, so we've got Stafford, Woods, and Higbee in as the Ram stack. What are your thoughts on bringing someone back from the Tampa Bay side? And if we're going to do that, who stands out most to you?
So that's not something that I always do, but it is something that, if you're leaning towards, especially a game like this, that's going to be what should be a higher scoring game. The total is like 55, I think, or something like that. So I think it makes sense in this situation. It's always hard to know which one of the receivers are going to go that you're going to want to bring back. We have Mike Evans slightly cheaper, 7,100 versus 73. And then Gronkowski is all the way at 6,500. We already got Higbee, obviously, but I think I want to do. How about we do it, Evans?
Okay, I like it, and it's possible that the Bucs are without Antonio Brown. We don't know right now. He does have COVID. If he gets 2 negative tests, however, he's going to be able to play because he is vaccinated. So as long as he can show 2 quick tests, he may be able to play on Sunday. So we will see where that ends up. But for right now, we're adding in Evans. So there's our stack: Matt Stafford, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, with a Mike Evans bring back. At that point in time now, we have $6,700 per position on average. And obviously the defense should likely be a little bit cheaper than that. So we got a little bit more than $6,700. Who stands out to you, since the floor is basically wide open? We could grab running backs, we can grab wideouts, defense, etc. Do you see anybody right out of the gate, maybe like a more low owned play for FanDuel that you like a little bit more than it seems the public does?
So I think we can go. We talked about him a little bit earlier. CEH. I think he's not quite as good of a price on FanDuel, which is keeping his ownership off a little bit. But I think this is a high upside spot for him. He's in single digit ownership. I think that's a pretty safe spot.
I like it.
Maybe not safe, but
it feels like a good play at the very least. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 6,500 on FanDuel today. So let's pop him in. 7% owned. I think that's looking pretty good. I've got our boom bust tool pulled up on FanDuel. You can see how likely someone is to hit their target score or be significantly below that. We've got ceiling and floor marks here. But what I wanted to look at was leverage. Our number one leverage play on FanDuel is at tight end. We've already filled that spot for right now. I'm going to skip it. The number one guy that isn't already involved in our lineup is $5,600 Kenny Golladay going for the Giants. He is projected for 6% ownership. We've got him in the optimal lineup just north of 9%. That is the second best wide receiver leverage score. Does that feel like a good GPP play for you today?
That sounds like a great one, actually. I don't think you can go wrong with that. That's one of the best ways to go about looking at a result using our tools. So I'm all for that. It looks like I'm getting well over it and on him with the lineups that I was just building as well. So let's go for it.
Awesome. That leaves us now $7,200 on average for a running back, our flex spot, and defense. Do we want to just put defense to bed now?
Yeah, that makes sense. They're one that you don't really care about as much, and this will give us a better chance to understand how much money we have to spend. So
As I look at the defenses, not anything crazy from a leverage perspective. It's more avoiding negative leverage, I think, in this scenario. Like the Broncos have a pretty big negative leverage score. The Browns have a pretty big negative leverage score. Same for the Raiders. The Seahawks are at the top of the leverage rankings. I don't necessarily know if that's a direction I want to go, but 3,600 isn't too bad from a salary perspective. And honestly, defense is sort of a crapshoot. So do you have a defense you like for GPPs?
One that looks interesting, I think. They've looked pretty bad recently, but their price is not too bad, and they're playing Miami as the Raiders. I'm not sure how good the Dolphins are going to be this week. They have Brissett. Is it confirmed that Brissett is going to be playing and not Tua? I think so.
I believe so. He fractured ribs, correct?
Yeah. So okay,
perfect.
So
okay, let's do it. Let's go Raiders then. 4K for the Raiders. So now we know what we've got, and we've got a lot. 8,800 for a running back and a flex spot. We can go pretty big here.
Nice. So a couple of guys that stand out at the top of the range. Obviously, Derrick Henry really blew up the slate last week, so he's an option, but he's going to be pretty popular. So that is a little bit of a concern. One guy that I also think might be kind of interesting, he let down a lot of people last week, was DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
He's not quite as highly owned, so against that Jacksonville defense. So anytime you can get one of the top guys against that Jacksonville defense, I think he's pretty interesting to me. So I think that's a pretty good route as well.
If we put Hopkins into our flex spot, that leaves us 9,100 at running back, which for the most part is basically anybody. You can't get to Dalvin Cook. The problem is we're sort of in a no man's land at that point. We can upgrade somewhere else, potentially if we are looking at, say, like our third best optimal guy is Saquon Barkley at 6K. If that were a direction for us to go, we could potentially upgrade off of Tyler Higbee, but that would change our stack. So how do we want to handle this, having 9,100 left at running back? We might need to make a change.
Yeah, I like your idea with Saquon. I think our stack is still fine because we have a run back option and we have another, a single wide receiver.
Ooh, I see something that we can do. Let me know what you think of this.
Yep.
If we add Saquon to that spot, but remove Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it leaves us $9,600, $100 more than Dalvin Cook.
Oh, that sounds pretty perfect.
And if we enter said lineup, we get to a value ranking of 80 to 90%, a contrarian ranking of 20 to 30. We're north of 100. That works. I think that we could probably try to be a little bit more different. Oh, God. We can try to be a little different, but I don't mind that lineup construction. I'm curious to your thoughts. If you saw an 80 to 90% value ranking, 20 to 30% contrarian ranking, would you want to move forward? Would you want to make any changes? Is there a type of contest you would want to enter this particular lineup into?
Yeah, no, I think this is a great range. 20 to 30% on contrarian is pretty good. You could, like you said, you could go a little bit more contrarian. This might be more of like a single entry contest with 1,000 people in it or something like that versus a Millie Maker type lineup.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that this looks pretty good actually. I do like we got, Mike Evans here at 6%. Our stack isn't that highly owned, so it's going to differentiate us a fair amount. So I think this looks really good actually.
Perfect. And we're almost right on the mark. So we've now built a DraftKings cash lineup. We've built a FanDuel GPP lineup. Any final thoughts on this lineup construction process before we get out of here? Because we are done.
Nope, I think it looks really good. I think the main thing that you want to make sure that you're considering is just making sure that you have a right amount of correlation and the right mix between the other options that we're talking about, ownership, points. Get that mix right, get the correlation in there, and you'll have a pretty good lineup.
There we go, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor of this show. Please hit that like button on your way out the door. Thank you to Steve for joining me for the first time ever, you and I doing a show together. I really appreciate it. And I think I'm going to be seeing you again next Friday as well. Good luck this weekend, everybody. Enjoy your Sunday for week 3 in the NFL. Good stuff.